Thomas.
I got to kick out Rodney Satterfield. I can't do that.
Oh, I haven't heard that name in 20 years.
Yeah. Wait till this all plays out, guys. We're going to have so much fun. Pete Forcelli, what's up, brother? Guess who we have on the 10-4 Tavern podcast tonight? So welcome, everybody, to 10-4 Tavern podcast. It is 7:05 p.m., Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Guess who we got on the podcast, Pete?
I have no idea, man. No, just kidding. It's Wendell Stradford, man. Legendary homicide investigator in the NYPD. I never got a chance to work with the man. Just meeting him for the first time. But we got a lot of mutual friends. Tommy, goes back to our old theory. Working cops always know other working cops are one guy, one level removed from them. So Billy Rolat, Steve Palermo, all the Red Rum guys in the police impersonation squad. And then some ATF folks as well that I work with over the years. So, yeah, man, out there keeping people safe. So
they all find each other. So, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern. Wendell Stradford, first grade detective, NYPD, but an original transit cop. Probably the epitome of the transit cops that I know. So, Wendell, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern, brother.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. It's an amazing thing to do, especially I got a housing guy, a transit. We were the butt rest for the police department, the real police departments, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Working by yourself and doing it all by yourself. No help coming. The radios sucked. You had your nightstick, your gun, and your brains. That's what kept us going.
Yeah. And if you got hurt, you got workman's comp on top of unlimited.
You got that extra check.
Some little secrets that people didn't know that were really nice that we lost, man, when Giuliani merged us into the NYPD. We called it in housing. You guys probably did too. The hostile takeover.
Yeah. So listen, we got episode 49 of the 10-4 Tavern podcast. We're almost a year in. And then we're privileged tonight to have Detective First Grade Wendell Stradford. A little bit of housekeeping here. So we are the 10-4 Tavern, so we got some cocktails going. So Pete, what are you drinking? I think you said Ocho Tequila. Fancy Bailey's on the rocks for me. My kids brought back from Sedona, Arizona, some fancy concoction of, I don't know, something like a Bailey's on the rocks. And Wendell, it's okay. Orange juice tonight. We're not going to break your shoes too hard because, Pete, this is your space. Talk to the folks.
No, man. Hey, don't drink responsibly if you're going to drink. And if you're in a bad place, man, don't self-medicate. It's okay to not be okay. It is not okay not to do something about it. Sometimes we see things that you can't unsee, puts us in a dark place. You go through things, man, these are temporary problems. There's a solution, and that solution isn't taking your own life, which too many of our colleagues do. It's asking for help, man. It takes courage to ask for help. It doesn't take courage to sit there and suffer in silence. So God bless you all, and drink responsibly, and cheers. Here's to you folks, those who went out there and protected other people, put your life on the line for strangers, people you didn't know. And if you put on the uniform and did that for years, then we are family, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So true. So true.
Yeah. So Wendell, we do a big thing we don't do a lot on it, but we talk about it on every episode, officer wellness and folks who have passed away and taken their own lives or have drinking themselves into a place or abused a substance, put themselves in a bad place. And we try to encourage them and let them know that there is always someone else out here. So we always try to at least send that message.
No, that's absolutely fine. At least 3 guys in Cold Case took their own lives, and we didn't even know that they were in that type of space. And then I know other guys too who from drinking have lost their lives just in serious accidents or cirrhosis of the liver. And sometimes if you had known it, we could have done an intervention, but it's always good to have people that are going to listen to you.
Yep, absolutely. So now that we've gotten into that and got past that and sent the message, and we'll probably wrap up with that as well. So, like I said, I came on in '86. We got Lizetta Duncan in the chat, so my law instructor. So 8622. So thank you, Lizetta, for all you did. We had a great time in the academy. Would love to do it all over again. But as a 21-year-old, not as a 60-year-old. but I think I could do it. I think
84-27, yeah.
Yeah. But when I think of original transit, there were the old folks that came from the 70s and then the layoffs and everything, and then early rush in the 80s. And so you were in that wave, right, Wendell? And then you were all the Mapleites and following all of those guys and doing
I
some.
haven't heard that in a long time. Mapleites. It was Mapleites.
So before we find out when you got on the job in the early 80s transit, why don't you walk us through where you grew up and how did you even become a cop and how'd that happen?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Brooklyn, lived in Brevoort houses. We moved to Staten Island very quickly because my dad had been in the service and he was living out on Governor's Island or something like that. We moved to Staten Island into the West Brighton projects. And, I have 3 other brothers. I got a sister and went away to college. Played high school basketball here on Staten Island. Went away to college in North Dakota. Had a scholarship at Minot State College. Played basketball there for a little while, but it was just too cold and too cold and too cold. Ended up getting a job out there in Montana working on silos, building silos, and it was still cold. And it was like a pit, looking down from the silo. If you have no idea how they go up, they build a ring around it, and you just keep filling the ring up with cement, and they put a hydraulic platform and it pushes you up, and you keep doing that every day, and you pour cement and you keep going up a little bit more and a little bit more until you get up and you say, well, how am I getting down? And it was a ladder, no crane, and it was scary. Worked out in the oil fields for a little bit, pulling chains, a job that I would never suggest for anybody. The basketball coach wasn't happy that we got a job like that, but in 1986, it paid a lot of money. 86?
No, you're a little before that.
86. Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry. I lost myself. In 1976.
76. I was going to say it's before 86, brother.
Yeah, no, 1976 and 77, we made a lot of money out there, but it just wasn't New York. I ended up getting myself caught out there, on a reservation, and I had to get somebody to come and get me off the reservation because the Indians weren't too thrilled that I was there, the Native Americans. But it was I'm thinking about it in my mind, and I'm like saying, oh man, I can't believe I did that. But we made a lot of friends out there. A lot of the football players, took us out there. They were farm guys, and I learned about cow tipping. And yeah, we're in a pickup truck rolling down these little roads, and they stop. We're drinking Everclear, and they're like, watch this, city boy. They get out the pickup truck, and I'm sitting there. Look, me and another guy from the Bronx, we're looking at them, and I'm like, can I curse?
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. And they're running full speed at this cow standing in the field. And they bounce off the cow, and the cow just like rolls his head and looks at him. And they're like, it's your turn. I said, to do what? They said, you got to see if you can knock the cow over. So I thought about it, but I had a little liquor in me. So I did it. The cow just looked at me. I looked at the cow, and I ran back to the truck and never did it again. But, and then the Ward County Sheriff came driving by and wanted to know what we were doing. And that was my first real experience with the police out there. And they said, get in. And they drove us back to the college and said, don't ever let us see you out there again. And it was interesting to a point. The coach wasn't too pleased with us because they definitely, let him know. But it was, And then I came back to New York, was on the list. I was getting kicked off the list, and my uncle, who was a sergeant in IAB, says, do you really want this job? I said, yeah. He pulled some strings for me and got me back on the list. And then next thing I know, class 84-27.
Wow. So Wendell, the stuff that you did when you talk about pulling chain and whatnot for that work's dangerous, if I'm not mistaken, right? That working in an oil rig, people lose fingers and stuff like that all the time. So law enforcement wasn't the first dangerous profession that you were in. And I know cow tipping's not a profession; that's kind of a hobby.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Pulling chains, you can lose your fingers, you can lose a foot, you can get wrapped up in it once the machine starts going. There's no stopping it until someone realizes you pulls a lever to stop it. Once your fingers are gone, your fingers are gone.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
saw some really bad, stuff out there. We saw a guy get wrapped up in a chain and get killed. And all I kept saying to myself, what the hell am I doing out here? And, back in 76, 77, it was paying good money, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I don't blame you. It is cold up there. I've been up to that part of the United States, man. It's probably as cold as it is in Alaska.
Different type of cold, though.
Yeah. Because there's nothing to block the wind. It's all flat, open land. So, that stuff right through that wind.
It was flat, and they give us warnings. Put on goggles. Do not go out there with your eyes exposed. Make sure your hands are covered up. There was another kid from the Bronx out there with us, Pedro, and he got frostbite on his ears, and they had to lop off a part of his ear. And his parents told him to get on a plane and come back, and he came back.
All right, so Wendell, you said you got back in '84. You got an 84-27. You went through the academy. So this is your retirement plaque, but showing your entry photo through applicant processing division. So just want everyone who can watch it. And if you're listening on X or on the other channels, you can't enter the chat. So the chat is going great right now. Everyone, a lot of people, Wendell, are saying, I know Wendell all these years, never heard the cow tipping story. Never heard the cow tipping story. So
they didn't come to North Dakota.
Is exactly the point of the 10-4 Tavern. All right. So yeah, so let's do it, man. You get into the academy. Did you even know what transit was?
I did not. I had no idea. I knew what housing cops were. I had no idea about a transit cop.
Exactly.
And when they told me I was going to transit, I was like, okay, I'm getting a job, work. They're going to put me down in transit. I had no idea. And then all of a sudden I saw the patch one day. And I'm like, what is that? It was a black patch, original black patch guy here. And they said, no, you're going to transit. And, but we were all in the same academy at that time. That was the first wave to go to 20th Street. I think there were 3,300 total people there. And, it was interesting because we still didn't know what the division was because we all wore the same academy uniform. And then once you got into your squad, then they started, we started getting transit teachers. They said, but you know what, when you guys leave here, you're still going to go to another transit academy to learn more stuff. I'm like, what else is there to learn? And Lord, did I learn it. Man unders and space cases. No radios that work. Tapping my nightstick on the tiles to get help.
It is definitely a different environment. And for those listening, Wendell's talking about all the unique situations. And the thing for me was always, being alone, that 7-minute run out to the Rockaways, then at one stop and then another 5-minute run. You got basically 12 minutes of yourself with no chance for help at all. And stuff like that. You just got to learn the environment, learn the system from, all the way up in the Bronx to the top of the Bronx to out in the Rockaways and then out to Stillwell and Coney Island. But you never had DVs except for the random DVs. So it is a different job, but it was really, really interesting. But we have some chats here. And Wendell, someone asked Detective Nolan 63, Wendell, who was your uncle that told you to come on the job? Was he on the job?
He was a sergeant IB, Frank Dudley.
Okay, there you go. So you go through the academy. Where do you land? What district do you go to?
So while I was in the academy, they kept talking about TPF. And I had a police science instructor, Richie Keeves. And he said, hey, you want me to help you out? I go, for what? He said, I'll send you to a place where you won't mind it. It's better than what they're going to send you to. I said, yeah. He said, if you don't mind doing rotating, how about District 33? I said, yeah, sounds good. I said, where is he? He said, East New York. I knew East New York, but I didn't know District 33. And when I got out of the academy, that's where they sent me, District 33. And just to make it a little bit more, people know Bobby Venable and I were in the same academy class, and we got District 33, and we had to share a locker because they didn't have any lockers for us.
Well, you know what? Since you brought up Bobby Venable, why don't you share to the audience who Bobby Venable is, the hero? And I have a little story on the back end. It was one of the most humbling and beautiful things I ever did on the job, for sure. I didn't know Bobby on the job, but I got to meet his wife. I'm sorry, his mother and his daughter, January.
January.
When we moved, they moved from East New York out to Freeport. So why don't you tell the audience about your experience with Bobby and tell them who he is, and let's acknowledge a hero.
Right. So Bobby was maybe a couple of years older than me, and they told us we had to share a locker. And he came over. I said, here's the combination. And he goes, oh, I got a lock too. I go, well, no, we're in the same locker. And he's like, well, how's that going to work? Because we had, he was in TPF and I was rotating. And, it kind of worked out because we worked different hours until we didn't work different hours. But, he was a rough and tumble guy. And sometimes I would see him and sometimes I wouldn't. And then, Bobby ended up getting basically executed by some drug dealers in East New York in the 7-5 precinct on Picken Avenue. I was working that night also. I was working a few nights when officers were shot and killed. When Irma got killed, I was in roll call with her. That Irma Lozada, I was in roll call with her that morning. And that afternoon, by that evening, she was dead. She was killed by a guy she was chasing.
I remember that. Terrible.
Well, these are two transit heroes, and they were the last two transit police officers killed in the line of duty before the merger. So thanks for acknowledging both of them, and please, everybody, never forget. Remember to never forget. All right, and I know they do a really good job. They keep going back and they do the memorials and stuff like that. So it's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so 33, Richie Keeves, just a shout out to Richie and Tracy. Tracy's a friend. I know Richie from the academy, but didn't know him on the job other than that. But Tracy is a friend, and we still in the same groups. So Tracy and Richie, you're out there. Shout out to you guys. So go ahead. So you're doing 33. What else is going on at 33? And how do you start getting all these specialized units, man? Because you did some pretty serious police work after that.
Yeah, and somebody, but 33 was interesting. I think Mike Seminara and Dave Lyle were there when I got there. Excuse me, and a few other people. But I think my first 2 or 3 weeks, we had three cops from 33 were shot. Frank Cottaspati was up on the Flushing line and he got shot in the abdomen. The guy that shot him was shot by Willie Harris, and we found out later on that he had a vest on. He went down, he got up, and he took off running. The other officer that got shot at Kingston and Troop. They were doing a sweep, and they tossed a bunch of people in a room. I can't remember his name, but somebody else out there might. And the guy pulled the gun out and shot him. And from that I always learned: search everybody. Don't just assume because they're giving up, peacefully, that they don't have anything on them. Oh yeah, officer, yeah, I go with you. I got it. You got me. No, I don't have nothing on me. And I learned from that day: you got anything on you that's going to hurt me, cut me, or cause you to get, some more charges than what I got you for. Which caused, and I give you, for instance, at Utica Avenue on the A, searched the guy. He was really compliant. He had a pipe in his sleeve. It was in the wintertime. It was shoved up his sleeve. I said, put your arms down. He put his arms down. The pipe drops out into his hand. He wheels around and hits me in the top of the head. I ended up getting 6 stitches from that. I was with Mike Kilgannon. If Mike Kilgannon, he was around with me too.
Yeah.
Big chase in the Brevoort houses, and ended up catching them. And nobody would help us. We called the 1013. Housing showed up right away. They knew who he was. Hustled him off, and I never saw him again. But I had to go to the hospital to get 6 stitches in the top of my head.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we got Inspector Spano on the air right here, looking good. Wendell and Tommy, nice job. Shout out to Vito Spano. What a great guy, great boss. Really enjoyed him. So former cold case commander, and then I worked with him. He was the division captain in the 7-7. So shout out. Thanks, Vito. Appreciate it. Great to see you out there. How's it
going, Inspector? He always tells me to call him Vito, but I can't do that. There's certain bosses that I had out of respect, I still give them.
I do the same. I get corrected all the time, brother. But you know what? he put Vito. He didn't put Inspector in the thing, so I had to call him out so everyone knew who he was. But he's Inspector to me too, of course. So go ahead, keep going, man. Let's walk through the career. So where'd you go from there?
I'm in District 33 for a couple of years, and then I put in for the task force. At the time, Transit had their own task force. They had the mobile task force. They had the pickpockets. They also had the I can't remember what they were called. But anyway, I went for an interview with Gollings and O'Connor, and there were a couple other bosses there, Tommy Burke, D'Alessandro. I can keep going on, but it was like the craziest interview in the world. Gollings just sitting up there with a cigar in his hand, and it's killing me. It's killing me. But they're running me through the process. Why do you think you need to be here? What do you want to do? You don't have that much time on the job. You won't be running around chasing robberies. This is not patrol. And I was like, okay. And next thing I know, I'm in surface crime.
Yep.
And surface crime was like the transit police street crime unit. It was that was a show too, because we did the entire city, and you got a partner, and a couple of guys that I worked with there, they died too from 9/11. Herbie Fonseca died, Timmy Gray, Bobby Ruiz, we all worked together, and some died from cancer and some just died, from whatever. So, but I was in surface crime, and we were all over the place. I had, got my collarbone broken, making a robbery collar on 149th and 3rd. Fighting with a guy, he pushed me in front of a bus, a city bus. It hit the both of us, but he landed on top of me, popped my collarbone out, and it was sticking out the back of my jacket. And when guys were coming, I couldn't even get my radio out. I was in so much pain. But thank God the bus driver knew what was going on. He called for help, and the 4-0 or the 4-2 came, and but they wanted to help me up and pick me up and cause my arm literally drop down to my knee. I was screaming, like, what happened? What happened? I'm like, my shoulder. He said, no, the bone is sticking out of your back. I was like, oh my God. He's like, we got to take your vest off. It was, my partner was Amani Booker, and she made it over there. Billy Cox, Neil Horowitz. There were a lot of guys that showed up.
Neil's on the chat. He's in the chat. Say hi, Neil. Neil, it's good to see you, brother. No, I mean, these are great. Pete, I'm sorry, this is not a housing show. This is a transit show.
Oh, man. Hey, we were all family, brother. We were all family. And
yes, we were.
And just like you guys, look, everybody breaks on my balls. Hey, housing was never available. That's because we were in Central Booking. We were making collars, man. And some guys were doing other things in apartments that I won't get into, but, a lot of us were.
Well, Pete, we're going to get into the murder work later in Wendell's career. We're going to do some transit reminiscing early, but then once he gets into the murder work, I think you'll dig in, and then any of the RICO, and you guys talked about some red rum cases, so I'm going to let you take over on the second half for sure as we do some transit reminiscing over here right now. But all right, so street crime. How long do you do in street crime? And
maybe 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure. But, before I speak about it, I just wanted to go back a little bit. When I was on patrol in District 33, I met a lot of guys, really, really good guys who, taught me the job. Eddie Clipper, which we called the Flea, Eddie Cotton, Old Blue Eyes. Eddie Cotton or Green Eyes, whatever he had, Bobby Chappelle, it was, and these guys taught me stuff. I remember getting off the A train because I had to post there. And, I would see the guys in TPF, Bobby Venable would come by, and we'd all wave at each other. They stick their head out the door, ding dong, close the door. So at Nostrand Avenue, there's a tunnel that goes to the other side. It's a pathway, and it brings you to the other side so you can go up into the street without having to, leave the station. So I'm walking down this tunnel. They told me you have to check the tunnel, but no one tells me that the neighborhood guys would go down there and knock out all the lights. That tunnel almost went to Franklin Avenue. They knock out all the lights and wait for people who who were too lazy to wait for another train to come to walk through that tunnel, and they'd sit there and rob you. So while I'm walking down that tunnel one day, and they say, "Oh, take your nightstick," just banging on the wall. That's where everybody leave. I'm tapping the wall, my nightstick, tile wall, and all of a sudden I hear a gunshot. And I look around, but all the lights are out. I can hear the bullet ricocheting off the tile. And I get down, and it's like bing, 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 and it comes all the way past me. And so I call an 85. And I'm like, "Shots fired." They're like, it was Harry Pierre. They're like, "Shots fired. What do you got?" I said, "Shots fired, Nostrand Avenue." They're like, "Do you have a description?" I was like, "Description?" I'm not going down there. So, all the cars get there. Housing does come. Everybody comes because that's the 7-9 or the 8-1. Everybody gets there. And Ray Alston pulls up in the Transit RMP. And he runs down. You remember Ray Alston with the belly?
Yes.
He
Big
comes
belly.
He's like, "What do you got, kid? What do you got?" I said, "Oh, somebody shot at me." He goes, "Well, where are they?" I was like, "They were down there in the tunnel." He said, "You went down there?" He said, and he smacks me in the back of the head. He goes, and I look at him. He goes, "What? You called the 1085. Everybody and their mothers come over to help you, and you don't have a perk? You don't have a description?" I said, "No, you're down there at the end of the tunnel." He said, "Well, who told you to go down there?" I said, "Sergeant Kinahan." He goes, "Well, Kinahan's not working." He said, "So he's gone home already." So he goes, "Listen, kid, don't ever walk down that tunnel unless you have your gun in your hand. And if the lights are off, you call for help before you go down that tunnel. So there's more than one person." He goes, "I bet you had your flashlight on." I go, "I did." He said, "Well, big mistake." He goes, "If you're going to walk down there, tap the wall with your stick, but never turn your flashlight on while you're walking down a dark tunnel like that." That was an amazing thing for me.
Yeah, there's tricks of the trade in the hole. Yeah, so we got Karen, Dirty Harry. It's funny. Harry Pierre.
Harry Pierre.
Did I hear that he passed away? Does he pass away also? Or is he
I
still
believe
alive?
that he did. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Harry, shout out to you, buddy. If you passed, I'm not sure. I thought I heard that a couple of years ago. So hoping you're still here, but if not, rest in peace, brother. You did a great job on the radio all those years. I had a lot of talk, a lot of conversation with him, and I was in District 30, so I was right upstairs, so we would pop up and say hi and stuff like that up at J Street.
Yeah.
So you move on. So you move from Surface, and you
To Central
eventually go
Robbery.
to. Do you go straight to Warrants?
Straight to Warrants, which was Central Robbery. There were three parts of it. You had the booth guys for the booth holdups. Then you had the warrant guys, and we did the sex offenders and the WOW warrants, like guys that got locked up with guns and were on parole or got locked up with guns, and our court system knocked it down to a misdemeanor. So Maple said, "No, still go get them. Just because they had a gun that day doesn't mean they won't have a gun tomorrow." So we're going to go lock those guys up too. And then then you had the Central Robbery guys that were working on all the robberies that happened on the system. There we go. Look at that beautiful group. Luke Woods, Howie Ray, Sonny Archer, Herbie Fonseca. That's great. And of course, me. And Dennis Boodle. Look at that. And rest in peace, Dennis.
Dennis Boodle, rest in peace.
Yes. Herbie Fonseca passed away. Trying to see that. Everyone else, Joe Quirk, Vic Denza, rest in peace, Sonny, because Sonny passed away. I don't know about Emilio Velez if he's still with us. And I believe Lee Winters is in that picture also. And
Patty Lanigan in there.
Patty, yeah.
Is that Neil in the center?
That is, I can't make it out. That might be, that's Neil. That's Neil.
Yep, in the white. Yep.
That's Neil. Stacy
Reese. Herbie. Is that Blythe in the back on the top? Who's in the top?
That's Max. That is Max.
Max Blythe? Yep. Okay. He used to blend. When he used to go in transit, he's like, you white guys, you got to learn how to blend. You got to learn how to blend. That's so easy,
That's right. Max got shot at too by a cop.
Yeah. Max was a great guy. A lot of laughs.
And there's Tony Gonzalez in that picture too. Rest in peace. Tony passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And there's a couple in there that are unnamed that can't really make them out, but you're thought of and you're out there. And so Mike Fabozzi's mentioning Sonny Archer. So I think it's a good time. I was sharing with everybody I was sharing with Wendell in the green room with Pete that Sonny Archer, who has also passed away, so God rest his soul. I did not know Sonny in transit, but when I was a squad commander in 7-9, and he was in the task force, the Marshall's task force of the fugitive hunters, I got to know him because he picked up a lot of my perps there, and I got to know him there. And really, really, everything I ever heard about him in the transit folklore was exactly who he is. Another just truly professional police officer, like yourself, Wendell. And so shout out to Sonny. I'm glad that you're here to talk about your career, but this was our opportunity with Pete and I with the 10-4 Tavern for me to recognize somebody who I got to know my last couple of years on the job and really, really respected him and appreciated him. So rest in peace, Sonny.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do it. Like, tell us about warrants. You got to have some good warrant stories, man.
Oh, we got a bunch of good ones. So we got the Devil of the D Train. I believe that was Patty's case. It was a guy that was I can't remember his real name, but he was called the Devil of the D Train because of his ears. He was terrorizing the D Train, obviously. He was robbing everybody he could. And they put us on it to apprehend him. And we would go out every morning. We'd start work at, 03 Dark 30, whatever you want to call it. And with Vertel Martin, Dennis Boodle, and Patty Fennell. Rest in peace, Patty.
Patty Fennell, another one. I'm detecting a pattern here, Wendell. Sorry to interrupt you. Way too many people have passed. Way too many people.
Yeah.
So
it is.
And I know Pete's got his share. We talk. Pete and I talk a couple times a week, and just constantly getting updates and stuff. So way too many people. So go ahead, keep going.
Yep.
You're Devil in the D Train.
Devil in the D Train. I believe that was Patty's case or Tony Gonzalez's case. So I'm gonna spin through it. But we would go every morning and we go to Flatbush around Church Avenue, Argyle, Flatbush, Ocean Terrace, Ocean Avenue to look for this guy. And then one morning, because they didn't expect us to be there that early, we see him, and Patty or Tony said, there he is. And we went after him in the van first. He takes off running. Of course, he's jumping over fences. We jump out the car, and he's screaming like a little you-know-what. He's yelling, Ma, 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 Ma. And all of a sudden, unfortunately, this is the same way Bobby Venable got killed. She pulls open the door. He goes running up the steps, and we go running after him. And she sees him and slams the door in his face, but not to bypass Bobby Venable. Bobby's chasing a guy, and that guy goes running up the steps, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs. And they open the door, and when they open the door, they shoot Bobby right in the head. As everybody else is running behind Sergeant Shaw and Napolitano. I can't remember the other, cops that were there. And, they at least get a couple of shots off at the bad guy. And that was, if you ever saw the 7-5 documentary with Dowd, that's Dowd, his supposed claim to fame, that he put Bobby in his R&P and drove him to Brookdale. But what he leaves out is that's also the apartment building that he was protecting. He was doing money drops for them, those same guys.
So I think there's a moment in time that we should probably talk about that with Dowd. Claim to fame is what he claims to be his fame about rescuing a cop, but to your point of protecting a drug house, that drug house was responsible for Bobby Venable's death.
Correct.
There's no excuse. There's no forgiving that. That's never going to happen. And whatever money he's made, whatever career he's had, whatever redemption in his world he's experienced is unacceptable to me, and he should be condemned. He should not be spoken to. He should not be given 1 ounce of attention by anybody for anything.
100%.
So let's make that clear. I know you guys agree, but
hey man, nobody hates a bad cop more than good cops. Nobody. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Let's go on. Wendell, your stories, baby.
I'm sorry. So,
you're good, bro.
So in surface crime, or the bus squad, what it came to be known as, we would get on buses and, in plain clothes, and we look for the buses that had the most crime in every single borough. I don't know if you remember Ralph Barrato and John Heinz. We all worked together, and at Franklin Roosevelt, or Theodore Roosevelt High School on Tremont Avenue, they were having a horrible, horrible time because these kids would come out of school and they were robbing every Catholic school kid. And it was Fordham Prep. They were robbing every Catholic school kid that would get on a bus. And they told us, well, you're not gonna catch anybody by following the bus in the car. We need you to get on the bus. So we were like, get on the bus with those kids. And they weren't like little grade school kids. This was a high school. And, so we dressed down a little bit more and, we got on the bus and we rode the bus from end to end. And some of them looked at us and some of them didn't care. And they jumped on the bus like they would and they started committing robberies. And we were grabbing them and one of them jumped up and tried to stab Ralph Barrato in the back. The knife is coming down like this. And Ralph, I don't know what Ralph had on, a coat of armor or something, but the kid never made it. And I think John Heinz grabbed him. So it wasn't me, but someone grabbed him and we got him off the bus. And these kids were like, oh, shit, Popo is here. And they started kicking out the bus windows and jumping out the bus. Bus driver had to stop the bus on Tremont Avenue, which he was supposed to do once we started making arrests because we told him we were on the bus. But his whole thing was, I'm not stopping this bus. Why these kids are on here going crazy like that. I mean, I understand it, but they were getting robbed too. The bus drivers were getting robbed. That's when I can go so far back and when they still had the change thing, they were still putting change in the thing, the change, whatever you call that thing. And then we would get on there. They were pulling the bags. They pulling the bags out at the end of the run. They go all the way to Tremont Avenue, go around a circle, or they go down to 149th underneath the trestle and stop their buses to turn them around. And these guys would jump on the bus and rob them. That's what we're there for. And we made a lot of robberies. Justin Giussino, I just remembered his name, who made me dislocate my shoulder, pushed me in front of a bus. And they initially charged him with attempted murder and assault on a PL, and he pled it down to misdemeanor assault. And I won't say God bless his soul because eventually he died of AIDS, so I don't care. Because I was in a lot of pain that day. And to see him in court, after the grand jury, he showed up and wouldn't take a plea. He started to take a plea, but he would look at me and smile, and then the DA is like, well, what do you want to do? I said, no, I don't care if he takes a plea because I know where I'm going to find him at again because he's going to go right back out there. But, he was one of those guys, transfer sellers, robberies. I forget the name of the projects that he lived in over there, off of Willis Avenue. He was a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just do a shout out for Miss Mazik 71. This conversation is so special. I'm glad that those who served well and have passed away are being remembered here tonight. May they rest in peace. So thank you. And so if you haven't heard it, and I was talking to Wendell when we were prepping, Pete and I have said it often and often on, again, episode 49, and anyone who we're trying to recruit, because not everyone wants to come on and do the podcast, and I get it, and we understand. But when we try to encourage them, we try to tell them these are the stories that need to be told by the people who need to tell them. No fakers, no posers, all pipe hitters, all true police officers, all true police men and women who served well and served our community. So shout out to everybody. Thank you, Ms. Mazik, for the shout out as well. We'll try to remember, never forget. So go ahead, Wendell, keep going, baby.
Yeah,
let's do it.
So, just to go back a little bit, I was in 2 shootouts. The first one I was in District 33. I don't know how I forget it because I was with Eddie Clipper. And we were at Eddie Clipper, the Flea. Used to sell, if there was a dollar store back then, Eddie Clipper was the dollar store. He'd pull up in his car, open up his trunk, and on Van Sinderen Avenue, and everybody would go there. And Eddie had anything you wanted to buy for $1, $2, $5 until inspections showed up and told him to shut it down. And they'd leave and he'd come back. So anyway, I'm at Nostrand Avenue again with Eddie Clipper. People are coming out of that tunnel, that walk around tunnel, and a guy standing across. This is when we had the 38s with the subpar powder in it. And Eddie goes, you see that guy? He's got a gun. I'm looking. I was like, I see him, but I don't see a gun. He goes, I'm telling you, he's got a gun. He goes, you go through the tunnel and I'll go up and go around the other way. So I look at Eddie. I said, I'm not going down there because I've already had that experience. He goes, don't worry. Pow, pow, pow. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm not running through the tunnel though, but I take the stairs and go up through the street, and the guy is coming up, and he's got the gun in his hand. I draw down on him, I let a round go. He goes, okay, and he just lays down on the floor. And Eddie puts out the 1013, and everybody is coming. It's Nostrin and Fulton, and everybody and their mother is coming. But I got the guy on the ground already. Clipper comes over, and he's like, "You mother!" I'm like. Eddie's like, he says, "That's my collar." I go, "It's not your collar." He goes, "I shot." I was like, Eddie, he's an old timer. I go, "All right, man, all right. You take my cuffs off him, and you can have the collar. I don't really care at this point, because it was just everybody was getting shot at. There was so many people getting shot in District 33. Every night we went out, somebody was coming in with a gun. There were shootings on every part of the system back then. And I was thinking about Richie Keys telling me this would be a good place to go to because you'll be rotating instead of doing TPF. It was it was crazy. Livonia Avenue on the L, they had the overpass, and they tell you, well, if you take the overpass, and I think that was Van Dyke houses that the overpass took you to, and they're like, you got to take the overpass and you got to go on the other side on Livonia Avenue and make sure there's nobody down there getting robbed. And I had never been on the overpass before, but I went through, and then, what's his name? Can't remember his name. Oh, Harry Nicolino. He's coming by in the RMP, and he goes, "What are you doing up there?" I said, "I'm going to the other side." He said, "Are you crazy?" He goes, "Go back to Livonia, come back through, and we'll pick you up on the other side." Meanwhile, everybody and their mother knew that I had taken the overpass. There had to be 20 people waiting down by the booth, waiting to beat the fare until the RMP had pulled up. And they were coming up the steps until they see me coming down the steps. And Nicolino's like, "Stop every one of them, grab every one of them." I grabbed one guy, and all the rest of them kept going. He goes, "Why'd you let them go?" I said, "What was I grabbing them for?" Because they also would shoot at you from Van Dyke houses. They see the cop walking on the platform by himself. They're taking target practice, shooting down at the platform. So it was, I think about it now because it's all coming back to me, but you couldn't shoot back because you shoot somebody's window and kill somebody in the projects. But they're like, "Kid, just duck your head down low. And if you're going to walk on the platform, go down, do your inspection, and come back and go down the steps to the booth." If there's somebody out there that can remember the name of that club that was on Livonia Avenue, because PSA 2 was down the street, and they would come driving by, and when the club would let out, because it was crazy. The club would let out. Either they were trying to get on the train or they were running down Livonia, East New York. I can't remember. The street will come back to me. But they would come and help us. They, "Kid, you need any help?" And the housing guys would come up into the train station because they're like, they need a collar. And they would toss people looking for guns. Because everybody that came out of that club, somebody, not everybody, you'd find a gun. And if they turned around and walked away, then you knew it was common law right of inquiry. And they were getting stopped. So Livonia Avenue, New Lodge Avenue, it was interesting. It was interesting.
As Miss Mazix, I'm going to keep giving her what a crazy time to be in uniform. She's calling up. I wouldn't trade anything for the world of it, but man, it was wild. And that was interesting because we had Louis Anamone on and we had Rodney Harrison on. And so, as two chief of departments back to back, we talked about the transition from, the 90s and then post-merger and then all of that stuff coming in. The late 80s, first 2 years, 92, 93, 94, even post-merger into 95.
Yeah.
Those were some wild times.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wild. Hey, you got a couple of little wild Bronx stories up there in the late 80s, early 90s?
No, man, it was crazy. And look, the nice thing was cops were allowed to be cops back then.
Yes.
I joke around and say that back then policing was a full contact sport, but it's not a lie, man. The Bronx was off the hook. The projects were crazy, and it was fun though. I hate to say it, as violent as New York City was back in those days. We did a lot of good work. I miss it. If I could go back and do any part of my career over, If you're walking a beat in the projects in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it was I loved it. I wouldn't trade any time in uniform for anything in the world. Even though I aspired to be a detective, but I remember, getting off the train at East 105 Street on the L in Brooklyn, and people are standing there, and they're like, "Can you walk me home?" And I'm like, "Where's home?" It's only a few blocks from here, and I think that was Brookline houses. And I'm walking with this old lady. I was like, "I thought you said it was only a few blocks." She goes, "Oh no, a few more blocks." She said, "Can you carry my bags for me?" I had to draw the line somewhere. I go, "I'm not carrying your bags." I said, "I'm already off post. And if they see me carrying bags while I'm off post, then I'm getting 2 hits." I go, "I'll walk with you." And there were no cell phones. I said, "They'll walk with you." I said, "There is a payphone right there. Call your house. I'll stay here with you and get somebody to come and help you with these bags, but I'm not going to leave you." And we get a lot of that at the stations, especially the really bad stations in Brooklyn, because that's where I started out in uniform. And people would come and ask you, older women, and can you walk me, to the projects? Can you walk me to my house? And I never said no. I always would do it. Only one sergeant got bent out of shape because he wanted to give me a scratch, and I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And instead of, it's like click, click, click. And I hear the click, click, click. I know the squelch. I know he's looking for me. And I'm like, let me get closer to where I'm supposed to be, and I'll make up something to get back. But I'm not going to leave these people out here by themselves. And I'd walk them, and they'd always come, and they say thank you. I'd see them the next day or some couple of days down the road, and they say, "Officer Stradford, thank you," because a lot of people wouldn't do that. I said, "No problem." She said, "Did you get in trouble?" I go, "No." She go, "Can I bring you some banana pudding or banana cake?" I was like, "No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. But, if I'm here and you need somebody to go with you, I'll walk with you. It's not a problem at all." And I said, "All you got to do is ask guys." There, a lot of guys would walk with you because we know back then, we know how bad it was. You could hear the gunshots all night long, just praying to God that, you didn't get hit. Back then, people were putting their kids in when they still had the cast iron tubs, putting their kids in the tub when they're hearing the gas, gunshots and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, let's have a little fun with the chat for a second. So check this out. Nolan, Prada's Lounge, is that the one at Livonia?
That could have been it.
Because I was going to say, Nolan, I need you to answer this because Nolan always gets it right all the time on every chat at every episode. So could be Nolan. We're going to check that out. We'll verify later. And then we got the ultimate Cinco of all time, the ultimate 5, Ray Sanchez, good chat guy. So shout out to Ray Sanchez, the ultimate Cinco. And then our colleague, Ron Layson, Inspector Ron Layson, who does the Executive Perspective on the Finest Unfiltered podcast. I went to District 32 as a NYPD lieutenant with the preconceived notion of quote-unquote transit cops. I thought I was the tough city guy, learned fast. The transit cops were the real deal, took care of business, and we're the police. A lot of respect. So thanks, Ron, for that. Appreciate that. Pete, we have similar commiserating stories about the housing and the transit, and
we knew in housing, we knew not if you're going to ride the elevator, do not lean on the walls because invariably you lean on them within 20 minutes before you got there. And we have a saying: it takes balls to walk the halls.
Yeah, and then Rob Lukesh, Ron's partner, community policing. So a shout out to your story there, Wendell. Appreciate that. Thanks,
worked.
Rob.
Community policing worked, man.
Yes, it did. It did.
And look, back in those days, more people. Look, there was a lot of crime, but the people in the community respected the police a lot more than a lot of them do today. I think a lot of people have kind of lost sight of what the police really do. They've bought into the nonsense. Look, we worked in some rough neighborhoods, but 99% of the people in those neighborhoods loved us, and it was that 1% that we were there to weed out and control, put them in jail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was like, I can't remember one of my instructors in the academy, when he knew I was going to trans, he says, you got to be the baddest motherfucker on that train when you're walking through there because it's just you and everybody else on that train. He says, you walk through there, you can either put your nightstick in that silly hasp or you can walk through there with it in your hand, but keep it down by your side. And people on that train, in that car would appreciate you walking through there. And, you know, and back then we had the revolvers with the swivel holster.
Yeah. I miss those.
Yeah.
The
Mine
gunslingers.
fell off one time when I was walking through, and I heard it fall, and nobody moved. And I turned around and I picked it up off the floor, and then they started laughing. The train pulled into Halsey Street, and I got off the train, and I'm trying to fix it, and I can't get it back on, and I end up having to go back to the district and borrow somebody's holster to go back on patrol. That swivel holster. A lot of guys, old timers, would remember that swivel holster.
I remember it. Oh yeah. No, because when they gave you the regular one that had the stand, which did not work if you sat in the car.
Right, correct.
Up on the side. Yeah, it was the strangest. It was the ugliest holster of all time. But I tell you what, it worked. You had to put your finger in there, and turn
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And the dumb day belly.
Can you, like, just as we're going to get back to Wendell's story, but let's just talk a second for the 80s. Like, we talked about being a cop in the 80s. What about the equipment in the 80s?
How about the cars that the seats were held up with milk crates?
Milk crates in the cars, terrible holsters, no Sam Brown belts, all those little 2-inch strap belts, no such thing as belt keepers. No gun retention locking mechanisms at all. That little piece of leather that held on the side of the revolver, like it's an embarrassment. It's a complete joke.
Yeah.
The long duty jackets are tactically terrible. They looked horrible. Oh my God, the
worst.
uniform.
How about the raincoats back in those days? Those plastic raincoats. Like being in a sauna if the sun came out after like a heavy rain. And you couldn't get to your gun because it was like literally like wearing a gigantic garbage bag.
You had to cut a hole in the pocket
so
you could get to the handle. But I did love my reefer coat.
Yeah,
because for sure.
You look official.
Were you one of those guys that bought an old choker, or you just buttoned up your current?
No, I buttoned it up. I had a choker and I didn't like the way it felt. And I had gotten that from an old timer. He goes, "Oh, you can have this. I'm retiring." I wore it a couple times after I got it cleaned, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. The rubber raincoats. Yeah, a couple comments. K cars. Yeah, remember they put out the K cars, those little cars.
Yeah.
And then Transit only had the big Suburbans because we followed the fleet from the Transit Authority and just said, "Hey, here's a bunch of surplus cars." Yeah. And then it was only until Bratton came in and we got the Chevys.
Right.
We finally went down to cars and stuff like that.
That's right. He
But
made a big difference when he came.
Yeah. And my favorite uniform of all time is absolutely the commando sweater. Like, by a lot. I love the commando sweater. I still have, and my wife is breaking my shoes, I have every stitch of uniform that I have. I haven't gotten rid of it. She told me you got to get down to one shirt as a sergeant, one uniform, one transit shirt, one NYPD shirt, one sergeant, one lieutenant, and one pair of duty trousers, one coat. Everything else has got to go, but I have them all. I have commando sweaters. I have everything. Yeah. I'm never going to wear it again, but I just can't get rid of it. I'll be honest with you. I can't get rid of it. Oh, and in fact, going through that, this is my ticket book right here, baby, from the transit.
You remember the Spanish translation?
The card, the insert.
You're in the middle of like some sort of situation. You can actually read to some guy that's got a gun in his hand, tell him how to drop the gun and put his hand up. I used to laugh.
The insert.
Yeah. Hold on, I think I might have it right here. I got frequently called. I got a tab summons right here, Wendell, for you, buddy.
Do you really?
I got a tab summons right here.
Insert, memo book insert. Thank you, man. That's a long
Transit Adjudication Bureau,
inserts. Yeah,
which was a
Look
joke.
At this. Check this out. That's a Transit Adjudication Bureau. It's right there. I got the whole book because she's telling me you got to get rid of all your shit.
No, you got to keep that. You got to keep that.
Way to go, Karen. You got your bookbinder too, baby. 40 years and counting. I'm not getting rid of it. Not happening.
No, you should not. I keep a lot of things. I still got my Coca-Cola. I still got my original pair of handcuffs. Never got rid of my original 38. Kept it. There's a bunch of things. I got some old rounds, which one of my friends told me, he goes, if you ever go to the range and shoot that, you're gonna blow your hand up. I was like, they're green on the bottom. I was like, I'm not shooting
Yeah.
these. Just keep them around.
No, I have my chief, and I have I have
Model 10?
the
Would you guys have the Rugers or the Smith and Wesson
the
Model
Ruger.
10?
Sorry, I
I
was
had the
thinking
Smith and
6 hour.
Wesson.
I got a 6 hour. Yeah, I had the Ruger Service 6, and then Chief. I still got them, and they're in my locker right here, and good to go. They're never going anywhere either. And then the boys will get them, and that'll be the end of it. You know.
Yeah.
So,
No, have my Smith and Wesson Model 10.
Yeah, I love that thing.
all right, so Wendell, back to you, buddy. And I'm sorry to cut you off every once in a
That's
while.
right.
Just keep in pace. Just keep in pace. We're trying to. We're an hour in, everybody. Appreciate it. We're over 200 people live viewers. So thanks for everybody showing up. The chat is active. Got a lot of love coming in, Wendell, as you deserve, which is great. So we're going to start getting into some more police work. I'm going to bring up a picture. Maybe you can speak to it, and then Pete's going to jump in. He'll tell you a little story about one of the. And this is just a coincidence, which I find fascinating. When Wendell sent me some of the pictures. So you did a raid with the ATF and Pete
With ATF.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, get into it. You remember this?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So I had a CI who turned me on to a guy that was selling guns, and I ended up calling ATF to help out because we needed an undercover, and that's Ray Napoli, I believe.
Frank Napoli, good man. He was the supervisor. Yeah.
Yep. And he got us an undercover. I believe his name was Wilson. I just can't remember his first name, but Wilson was his last name. And it was going in such a way that I ended up having to go and make some of the buys. So that hat that I have on is University of District of Columbia. It's not where I went to school. It's my brother's hat. And none of that stuff we have on is what we wore when we were doing those buys. But the guy he's from Staten Island. There's drugs on there. He had automatic weapons. And we raided that house. And the guy said, no. There's more stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, in the drop ceiling, my CI, because he followed us to do the raid because he wanted to make sure he got paid. So I think it was John Dove who's in this picture. He or Patty pushed up the drop ceiling and they look, and there's all this money and guns and drugs up there that we would have probably walked out the house. So ATF ended up charging him, with more things, guns and drugs. If you correct me, Pete, if I'm wrong, guns and drugs together get you more time.
Yeah, to get you, whatever you get for the drugs plus for the rifle, you get just for mere possession of it, you get a mandatory minimum 5 years for a rifle. Oh, no, sorry, it's 10 for a rifle. 5 years for a handgun on top of whatever you get. So the judge, you get 10 years for the drugs, you can get at least another 10 for the rifle or 5. So it's using the firearm in furtherance of a federal crime of violence, or drug trafficking, and that would be the drug trafficking charge. Yeah, man, that's why he hammered people.
Yeah, and one of those guns came from an armory in Ohio. It was 2 National Guard brothers. They were twins, and they hooked my CI up. And he told me, he goes, "Listen, you're gonna have to. They're not gonna sell it to me because they know I don't roll that way." And he goes, "But they don't know you." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "But you're gonna have to go to Pathmark." I remember it like it's back of my hand, to the Pathmark supermarket parking lot. They'll meet you there in a car. I was like, "Okay." He goes, I said, "Tell me what kind of car it is." So I let ATF, the supervisors know what was going on. And, they were all, they got the block all surveilled and everything. They just go by it, give us the high sign, and we're moving in. Just walk away from the car. I get there. The guy has the rifle. He's got the gun. And I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. And I know something. He's like, "How much money you got?" I said, "How much money did you say it was?" He goes, "Well, how much money you got?" I go, "F you." I go, "This is what it is." I'm not waiting around. I give the high sign. And it looked like, I don't know, a Christmas tree coming in that lot. And these guys are like, they're looking to run. But, ATF had the big truck around the corner, which I don't understand how anybody couldn't have seen it. But these 2 nuts didn't. And then we went to the house, and then we ended up getting, all this stuff, from them. And, their mother was in the house. And she goes, "Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here?" And I said, "Ma'am, if you don't want to get arrested too, I think you just need to go back out the back door or something." And John was like, "Whoa, wait. We're going to go search her room too." And, your guys went at, have at it. They didn't find any more guns up there, but she did give her son. She almost wanted to beat them when she came out to the car for having all his guns and drugs in her house. She really had no idea. She had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And that agent that's there with you, Sam Rabati, I know we went to grade school together. He's a couple years older than me. We were beaten by the same nuns in grade school. I know that before Sam went to ATF, he was, I think he was with the Yonkers police for a short time and then the Secret Service. So Sam had been around. Great guy. We're still friends to this day. Solid guy. He left New York as an agent. He was a supervisor in Philadelphia for a while. So he left New York as an agent before I got hired by ATF in New York. I think he left in like 99 or so. Great guy. Great guy.
Yep. So shout out to Sam. We're going to make an Opus clip and we'll send it to him and tell him how handsome he was and what the hell happened to him. You know,
what happened to him?
He actually is heavier there. He's actually thinner today. He looks great. He's doing great. He's very handsome. And, you know, he's doing, I'm getting a refill, guys. So thanks.
Yeah.
I'm switching. I'm pivoting. It looks like a Negroni, not a phony Negroni, but a real Negroni. So anyway, Pete, that was great. But just to show you what's going on in the chat and how lively we are today, I'm going to switch this and then show this. I'm getting pictures sent to me of the Spanish phrases memo books. So
that's great. Look at that.
Come on, I got to put his hands up. I want. Hold on. Stand by.
Everyone still has their memo book binders already.
That's great. So. That's great.
So good. So good. And yes, Lizetta Duncan. So such a great example of living experience, particularly transit. Shout out to transit all day, every day. I am indebted to the NYPD. They did great things for me post-merger. I was against the merger. However, transit will always be number one, without a question, without a doubt. Just wonderful memories. I wouldn't trade anything for the world. I have a better life than I deserve. So thank you for every police officer I ever met on transit, housing, NYPD, and all across the country, everywhere. It's been great. All right. So Wendell, we got to kick it, man. We got, another hour, a little less than an hour to go. You got way too much good stuff to come up. So let's get into some really good stuff. Where do you want to take it? Go ahead, man.
10. I got to plug in my laptop because the battery's going. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah,
this is the Tavern. Pete and I can talk. So
this is tough, man. It's a trip down memory lane. It's nice.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do. Transit cop. I didn't go into the hole, as you guys called it, very often. But man, I love being a house cop. Best job I ever had. And family. Captain knew your kid's name. You knew the captain's kids' names.
Yeah.
Absorbed into the PT where just so many people, man. You didn't have that same sort of family sort of relationship. But yeah.
Are you good? You're all juiced up, Wendell?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Okay, good. All right. And Ron Layson wants to remind me that they're also laminated, so they're going to be preserved. They're going to find them 1,000 years from now in some landfill and go, "What the hell was this?" So, all right. So listen, you go to. Let's go merger, post-merger, and then this was probably controversial, but I want to just jump ahead to Cold Case. And I have the picture here somewhere. Oh, I didn't get it in. You talk about coming Cold Case, I'll get it up.
All right. So before Cold Case was Cold Case, it was called the Police Commissioner's Investigation Squad. We worked directly for Bratton and Maple. We did basically whatever they wanted us to do. So there were a lot of media cases, rapes, murders, and kidnappings. And there were about 60 of us. And he took them from all 3 departments. And there were several parole officers with us too, and a couple of state corrections that worked with us because we were doing paroles. So Bratton, had a dream. He and Maple had a dream. He says, you know what? Too many people are getting away with murders and rapes, and they never seem to be apprehended. So I want to get a group of guys together who know how to hunt people. And Maple got to pick him. Jack Maple, Dennis Boodle, Patty Fennell, Bertel Martin, Inspector Westwood, but I can't remember his first name. Was Diane Panetti. He's like, put them together. John Dove. He says, get me people who know what it's like and they want to actually do police work, because not a knock on transit police, but I had supervisors in transit that just did not want me making collars. They're like, go to the booth, stand by the booth, and make sure everybody pays. And I would always find a way to make a collar. Somebody would walk up to me and say, hey, that guy's getting beat up on the train, or, oh, they just had a robbery, or there was a door knocker snatch, those big hoop earrings that the girls were wearing back in the day. And, I'd have bosses that tell me, well, give it to the street. They're here, let them have it. And I go, well, I can't do that, boss. And he's like, well, why not? I'm ordering to. He says, okay, well, then let them do the paperwork, And, whoever was there, the housing cop or the street cop precinct, he'd be like, do you really want this collar? I go, yes, with a wink and a nod. He goes, hey, boss, I didn't see what happened, so I'm not taking this collar. And that was it. And they'd be pissed off. So look at that. That's the original Cold Case Squad picture. When we were still the Police Commissioner's Investigation Squad, and they put us together, and Chief Anemone was our boss. They pulled us out of the bureau and put us under Chief of Department. And that caused a lot of dissension.
I bet it did.
Was Miniotis in that unit?
Who's that?
Gus Miniotis, was he in that team?
Yes, Gus was one of the. Oh, you can see his face.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can. Oh, maybe because the mustache.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're a good detective.
I could smell the Greek olive oil, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that was we were kicking ass. We were real go-getters, and that's what they wanted. And Maple said, you know what? If you have to, well, he would get mad if guys used his name, because we had a lot of guys who were upset that we were going to the precinct and pulling cases. But the way it was supposed to be was, I knew guys over there, I knew guys in the squad, but Comstat had already started, and they were taking cases, the Comstat guys, and and they were like, we want you to work on this, we want you to work on that. And, a lot of guys didn't want to call the squad, and I call the squad. I'd be, listen, Joe, they're giving me this case, and I see it's yours. What do you want me to do with it? Depending on how they felt about it at the time, he's like, you can use it to wipe your ass with, or he'd be like, hey, if you can give me a heads up, I can help. And I said, I'll do whatever you want to do with it. It's your case. You started it. If you need me to find witnesses, I will. I go, but if there's more solvability to it, why don't we do it together? We don't have to tell them. And guys would really appreciate that. And if it came down for the day to make a collar, some guys were like, well, Thursday's my RDO. How close are you to grabbing the guy? I said, like in a couple of hours. And he's like, well, can you wait? Can you wait till Thursday? I'm like, I absolutely cannot. And he goes, all right, well, do what you got to do. And, I had good rapport with guys. I'm like, I get it. You did the crime scene. I did not. Not this particular one, but I'm going to work with you. You got witnesses that you cultivated. If they're not able to do anything anymore, I'll do them. I would go find, and Maple was good with that. He was like, you go find those witnesses and let that detective know. If he doesn't want you to talk to him, then don't talk to him. If you want to cultivate them more, then you go right ahead. Because once you make this collar, if that detective doesn't want to do the court thing, then you're going to have to do the court thing. And that didn't bother me. I was like, hey, we're pushing it through. And this is what people were upset about, because they thought we forgot about them. Your loved one got killed and nobody's doing anything. You got demons riding on the bus with your children. You got these they're murderers, and they get on the bus with your kids. They get on the bus with your mother, your grandmother, and no one is looking for them, or no one knows what they did. And they wanted guys to go out there and finish these cases, lock these bastards up. And that's what we were doing our best to do. We didn't get everybody, but we got a lot of them.
Yeah. Hey, let's be honest, guys. Seriously. There were detectives that were out there that were salt of the earth, great people that worked their case, ran down every possible lead. And then there were some guys we worked with over the years who didn't do that at all, man. The case file was this thick. They'd work a couple of days, then get tired, and sometimes not even follow all the leads they had. So, I mean, that's why you needed a cold case squad. You needed units like that because, look, not everybody was firing on all cylinders. Some guys were really aggressive and great. And then there were some who were lazy, man. And look, that's why there was a chief of detectives in the Bronx named Charlie Camerdenner. I don't know if you ever heard his name. If you were a guy who was out there grinding it, Charlie Camerdenner was your friend, man. He would throw you overtime. Catch overtime was what they called it back in the day.
Yeah, catch.
And you made money. If you were one of those guys that weren't out there doing it, you didn't get shit, and he didn't respect you. And I got news for you, man. Like, for the working detectives, we respected the other workers, and we tolerated the others. But, man, K-Man, they called him the K-Man. He was hated by the slugs and loved by the worker bees.
Yeah. And you're right, because, a lot of people didn't like Chief Resnick, but I did, because Chief Resnick was one of those guys. If you're doing your work, then he was fine with you. If you needed to make overtime, he's letting you do it. But if he realized that you're just a bullshit artist, then he called you out on it. He's like, what do you got? Tell me what you got. Because I know that case. Tell me about it. Come to my office and tell me about that case. And he would see through bullshit. That's what he'd do. And he and I got along very well. And, people were afraid of him. I had a lieutenant, Joe Polini. He would say, Wendell, if you got to come to me and ask me questions about everything, then you don't need to be here. He said,
that's Joe in the lower right-hand corner, right?
Yes. He'd be like, you're the detective, I'm the supervisor. You go detect and I'll supervise. And, there were other bosses like that too. They go do your job. You're a detective, just do your job. And if there's a problem, I'll help you fix it. If anybody gets in your way, I'll take care of it. I'll intercede. And he did. And Joe was great. He was a great guy, and he would just tell you, he goes, I'll sign your overtime. I'll give you your days off, but I'm not going to do your case for you. But he was one of those bosses. He'd be like, you need somebody to go out with? I said, I do. And he would come with me. He'd be like, why didn't you ask this or ask that? Because that's not what I needed to ask, boss. He goes, okay. He goes, all right. I just wanted to know why you said what you said to that person. He was good. And he'd be like, Wendell, he goes, don't get me into anything that we can't get out of. He was a professor at John Jay. I was like, okay.
Right.
And, we would go. And he was good. I had a lot of bosses like that. Hey, Pete, do you remember John Cumbo?
Yes, I do. Good man. I think he was a PSA 2 detective, and then he went to Major Case and Housing. Tall, thin guy. Really well dressed. Yeah, he was a worker. He's one of the worker bees.
Yes. He was with me and Angelo Chofi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Angelo was a legend. At the end, he worked for, Tony DeRita was another detective, but I think they worked for Buddy Murnane at some point.
Buddy Murnane.
And the lieutenant was Donnie Durando, another legend and great guy.
Yeah, Angelo was a good guy, great guy.
Yeah. I think he went to Major Case after the merge, if I'm not mistaken.
He came to Cold Case.
Did he come in? Okay. Yeah. Great guy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Wendell, why don't we do this? You've done some remarkable cases. Jimmy West on social media, retired lieutenant, commander of detectives from the 6th Squad and Cold Case, and probably a couple other assignments. Original Housing HFL guy. He wrote a comment in one of the social media posts promoting this show that he said he believes it's arguable. Can't confirm. He does not have empirical data to support this statement, but he believes it's possible that you may have cleared as many homicides as anybody else anywhere. Now, I don't know how to even track that and measure that, but you closed a lot of murders. And you and I talked about this, and you got mad at me. I'm going to tell everybody, Wendell was supposed to be on a couple of weeks ago, and he had a scheduling conflict, and he had to cancel. But he called me up. He said, Tom, you got to pull down that social media shit that you're putting out. He's like, 100 homicides, 100 murders? I don't know if it's 100 murders. And I was like, Come on, Wendell. I'm just doing what the New York Post said, man. You had a retirement. You had a retirement story in the New York Post when you retired for all your great work that they memorialized you and they said it. I didn't say it. They said it. And then by the time you finished tabulating apprehensions, maybe there was somebody else's case, but you're out with them, working with them, took interviews on them, did interviews with them, took statements from witnesses, ran cases, testified in court. You're easily talking over 100 murders. That's a lot of work, brother. That's a lot of God's work. And so I thank you for that. I know Pete does. I'm going to speak for him, and I know he's nodding right now. So you've got a lot of cold cases, a lot of murder work. I think it's the most noble profession in the world, policing is, and then the homicide detective more so. Not more so, but to that further, it's because there's nothing worse that you could do to a community member than to take another human being's life. So having a debate with somebody from narcotics who was telling me that, no, the homicide guys get a debrief before the narco guys. And he goes, no, the narco guys, because this guy could deliver us, keys of coke. And I'm like, you fucking idiot. The whole fucking reason why these people are dead is because of the keys of coke. So that doesn't make any sense to me. However, that being said, you got a lot of murder work. So why don't you talk about some of your most important cases to you as the homicide detective that meant the most to you, and share some of those stories and why they meant so much to you.
Yep. So one of my that meant a lot to me was the homicide of Selena Cooper and Joy Little, a 9-year-old girl and her mom. She might have been 30, in the Bronx in the 4-2. Robert Fleming is the murderer. So they got murdered in 1988. And the bosses in Cold Case and from the squad, everybody was like, why is this kid, and before he killed them, he raped them both. And he made the mother watch him rape her little girl. And then he tied them up, and he opened up their legs and tied their ankles to their hands, so anybody walking into the crime scene would see their genitalia. And the grandmother found them dead. Found them dead on a Sunday. It's February 1988. And she sent one of Joy's classmates up to the apartment to knock on the door so she could take her to church. And the little girl said, oh, nobody's answering the door. So the grandmother went upstairs and knocked on the door, and the door creaked open, and she said it was horrible. She pushed the door open, and she saw them spread out akimbo on the bed, and she knew they were dead. She went into the apartment. So that case was passed around to a few detectives, and everyone worked their heart out for it, because I remember the crime scene photos of the little girl and mother, and it was they were horrible, as you can imagine. It's just, he was an animal. He was an animal, and he made the mother watch. And I was able to get a confession from him where he, admits to it. Myself and Steve Buscini.
I know Steve. Yeah, good man.
Yeah.
Yep. See, Pete, you said it. All the same people tend to cross paths all the time. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. So I guess you know Dave Nielsen too, Pete.
A little bit. I know Steve Buscini a lot more because he was working at the Southern District as an investigator.
Yeah, in the Southern District, right.
Yeah.
So this Robert Fleming guy, he lived over on Colgate Avenue in the Bronx. And they found another dead woman in his mother's basement. Poor woman, Wanda Seasmore. And after I arrested him and it hit the newspapers, her family started calling, about it, saying, he was the last person she was seen with. So going back to Chief Resnick, he had a case from the Bronx, Baby Hope. I mean, from the 3-4, Baby Hope.
3-4, baby hope.
Yeah. And he had bought him a cold case. He called one time. He said, listen, I have the whole case folder and somebody else to work on it. And myself and Bobby Dewhurst started working on it. And we were able, after Crime Stoppers went out and did a thing, we would go and work on, they would drive around in a van and put up posters. And then we got a tip one night, someone called, and we were on all cylinders trying to run down that tip, myself and Bobby and several other detectives from Cold Case. And we ran down the tip. And Bobby and I ended up going to Mexico to look for the family. And we were able to get a DNA hit. And it ended up being a family member because he was sexually assaulting her, abusing her. She might have been 4. Conrado.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's that picture that I sent you, Tommy. He was
I don't know which one was that, Wendell.
walking him out of Gold Street. He was a little short guy with the tweed jacket on, and I'm behind him. I'm on the side of him walking him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I got that one, but just so everyone knows, this is Baby Hope. And she was found in 1991 on the Parkway inside of a cooler, if I remember correctly. Yeah, cooler.
Yes.
And it speaks a lot because everything you said about Resnick is true. Probably one of the greatest investigators, greatest supervisors of all time. Difficult boss to work for, but if you were working and you were filling him in and you were not bullshitting him, he would read through it. I also had a good relationship with him. I got my ass handed to me a couple of times, but I deserved it. But he knew my heart was in the right place. The fact that he carried this with him from the 3-4 all his years, because he was the squad commander in 1991 when this happened, and he carried that with him and handed it off to you guys. Shows a lot of faith that he had. So, this is a pretty sensational case that a lot of people should know about. And if you don't know about it, look up, just do your Google searches and do your Baby Hope case and read all about it and how it was eventually solved by Wendell and the team many, many years later. I want to say like 2010-ish, 2011, maybe something like that. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about what it was. It was before I went to the PC's detail, which is
because I'm estimating that big because I know it happened after I retired. So. But you got a bunch more. What about the? I think there's a cool one for the story for the podcast. Is the dating game run? Okay, Alcala.
Yeah, Rodney Alcala. He was the dating game killer. He was a serial killer. He actually was on the dating game back in the day and won. And the woman who picked him had an eerie feeling about him, and she refused to go on a date with him. He's estimated to have killed at least 130 women from California to New York. Myself and Steve Bassini worked on that case for a number of years. And, I had gone out to San Quentin, Steve and I, to interview him. And we took he's dead now, but we took his dental impressions and we brought them back because he would basically use a camera and say, I can take your picture, and would tell women, young women, he had a type that I can make you famous. I can get you a magazine cover, because he went to the film school here in New York, and Roman Polanski was one of his instructors. Roman Polanski, the rapist. So Rodney was a rapist himself, a serial rapist. So all the things he did in California were always girls, young girls. And he was a pervert. We had gotten Steve and Steve did a lot of work on it, a lot of interviews. And he took a girl on his motorcycle and drove her across she was pregnant, and drove her across from California to Wyoming and killed her and left her in the desert. His DNA popped up on her after her body was found, and I got a call from some Wyoming detectives. They called the DA's office, and they wanted to know, what we're going to do with him. In fact, his DNA popped up on a girl in Marin County in California, where all the serial killers end up at. A lot of detectives came out here to talk to him. It's hard to describe. I was in a car with him for several hours while we transported him from San Quentin to a federal lockup, another one in California. And he would talk to me he supposedly had a high IQ. He ended up taking a plea when we got him back here for murder. Pled to the two women he killed here in New York.
Were those New York County? I mean, Manhattan, or were those Bronx?
Manhattan. He killed them in Manhattan.
Wow.
And buried one up at Roosevelt, the Roosevelt mansion. He buried one at, and I can't for the life of me remember their names. One of them was a relative of a chief in the transit police. I don't know if you could do a quick Google search, Rodney Ocala, please. I can't remember their names.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. Go ahead, keep talking. I can do a search. So
I had another homicide, a double in the Bronx, in Parkchester houses. Linda and Leon Martinez. It was a very good case. Myself and Steve Berger worked on it, and it was old-fashioned police work. It happened right before Christmas in 1996. These perps came up from Esteban was involved in drug sales. He was hooked up with some guys, and they were selling large keys of cocaine. And the DEA was on to him. He owned a store on White Plains Road, and they were hustling drugs through the store, laundering money through the store, his business. He had a hookup in Baltimore. And in Baltimore, Eddie Norris helped me with that. He was a commissioner here, and he went down to Baltimore and became the police commissioner in Baltimore. And we did a bunch of really good investigation. We found these perps through parking tickets. You know how detectives do a canvas of the street? And the detectives that had the case originally did a canvas of the block and took down all the license plates to the cars that were on the street after the homicide. And we were able to match up a parking ticket to a woman in Baltimore, Keisha Washington, who had been up here. She was one of the crew that came here with her boyfriend and her twin brother. They planned it. They planned to come up here and rob him. They did a home invasion with the three children inside the apartment. If you ever heard the 9/11 call, these poor kids, it's you ever get a chance, it's called Clues in the Ceiling, and it's on Anatomy of Murder. But the poor kids were like 6, 5, and 4. They watched their mother and father get tortured and murdered by these mutts from Baltimore. They came up and, did a home invasion when they weren't expected to be in the Bronx. They tortured the mother and the father with a sheetrock saw, pushed it through their ears, beat them, but, and then because they wanted them to give up where the drugs were and money were in the house. They couldn't find them. The children were in the bedroom cowering, but one of the girls that was here kept the children in the bedroom and wouldn't let them out, but they could hear the screaming that was going on in the living room. It's horrible. And then when they found some money and they found some drugs, and then they shot the mother and the father in the back of the head with the gun that they had. And then they fled. and jumped on a Peter Pan bus. They went down to the Port Authority in Manhattan, jumped on a Peter Pan bus, and went back to Baltimore. So with the help of Eddie Norris and one of his detectives who was in the gun task force in Baltimore, we were able to run them down, find out who they were. And myself and Sonny Archer and Steve Berger went down there and picked them up and interviewed them and got confessions from all four of them on the homicide that they did here in New York. Keisha Washington was like, "You guys are not from Baltimore?" We're like, "No, why would you say that?" "Oh, because my baby's daddy owes me money. If I help you, are you going to be able to get the money for my children?" And I'm like, "No." And then Steve Kaplan, we laid it on and like, "Listen, we're from New York. Remember the time you were up there right before Christmas?" "Oh, that?" I was like, "Yeah, what does 'oh, that' mean?" "Oh, well, I didn't kill those people. Those people were good to us." I go, "Yes, you did." And I laid some crime scene photos out in front of her. "Oh, is them people Spanish?" I go, "Is them people? You know their names, don't you?" And she goes, "No, I don't know their names. Do I have to look at these pictures?" I go, "Yeah, you have to look at those pictures." She goes, "Well, I didn't do it. My baby's daddy did it, and my brother did it, her twin brother, because the girlfriend was there also. So are we going to get in trouble for this?" I go, "Well, time is reckoning right now. Yes, talk to me and tell me what you did. Tell me what happened." And she did. She confessed. She confessed to it. She goes, "Well, I didn't know they were going to kill them. Everybody says that. I didn't know they were going to kill them. But we didn't hurt the children." I said, "Well, I got your fingerprints from the scene." And she goes, and I knew she had gloves on. And she goes, "No, you didn't. You couldn't have." I go, "Why?" I said, "You opened up a can of soda for the children to drink because they were making so much noise." She goes, "Yes, I did." I go, "Well, you couldn't open them up with gloves on. You took the gloves off and popped the can." She goes, "Yes, I did."
There you
And
go.
now, I go, "Okay, well, we got that." It was all a feint. It was all a feint. And she fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And I go, "You even stole the presents. You stole the Christmas presents and bought them and gave them to your own kid, right?" She goes, "Well, but we didn't have any money to buy stuff for our kids." I said, "So you took Christmas presents from a family where you killed the mother and father and gave them to your kids?" And she goes, "Well, there wasn't a lot of money." I go, "What'd you do with the money and drugs that you took after you killed those people?" "Well, I said, "Don't lie, because I know you went to a hotel when you got back to Baltimore. They went whatever Baltimore Harbor is, and they got a hotel, and they went out and bought chicken, and they bought their kids. They went and picked up the kids and brought them back to the hotel so they could give them their gifts, their Christmas gifts, and they partied all night long." And they go, "How do you know that?" I said, "Well, you paid cash for the hotel, and you're on video." And she goes, "Well, I didn't kill nobody." I go, "Well, tell me who killed them." "Well, I think my baby's daddy did." I go, "Oh, and my brother." I was like, "Okay. Well, am I going to get in trouble?" I go, "You're going to be in a lot of trouble." I go, "Because we're bringing you back to New York." We didn't bring her back right away. I had to come back and talk to the DA. Nancy Borko was the DA, and one of them, Michelle Rodney, is a judge now in Manhattan County. And they were like, "Well, can you guys jump on a train, Amtrak, and bring us the confession and the tapes?" I go, "I can't go anywhere, but we'll get somebody to bring them up to you. You're just going to have to meet them at Penn Station." And that's actually what we did. And I stayed. But it was, Nancy and Michelle were very good DAs. And they really put the case together, and we got, grand jury, we got indictments on them. And we got a cooperator who testified. And we got the kids to come in and testify also, Esteban Jr. And one of the other kids.
Great case. That's good police work.
It was very good. But when we went down there to Baltimore and we had to bring them back, we had SUVs then. And Sonny went with me. And one of the murderers, Kevin Washington, was as big as Sonny. If you knew Sonny was like 6'5". 245. He was an avid weightlifter. You know, he was into bodybuilding. So he goes, Wendell, I'm going to go with you. And we had to go to Baltimore City Jail to get them out because that's where they were holding them out. So we get Kevin Washington and we're putting him into, it was, what is that car? Some kind of SUV. I don't remember what it was. And he tells us, you know, you guys, you know, why do I have to have these leg irons on? He goes, I'm on Team America right now. And Sonny said, the only team you want to be on is Rikers Island. He said, he tells them they have a football team. And he was like, really? Yeah, really? And he goes, so what are you going to do with my sister? I said, well, you'll see your sister on Rikers Island at some point. You know, then we had to go back and bring her back. And then Keisha's baby daddy, Robert Mitchell. And they all came back and testified. You know, they didn't take pleas. They were convicted at trial. You know, the DA, Nancy Walker, was very good. You know, the way she presented it and she held the trial. It was amazing. And they got 75 to life.
Good.
Pretty sure 75 to life. The girls had a pretty stiff sentence also. They ended up testifying. They were on parole now back in Baltimore. You know, that was, you know, one of the memorable cases that I can remember. There were others. So Tommy, when were you in the 7-9?
May 5th, 99 to June 6th, 2004. 1,856 days, but nobody's counting.
Okay. Were you the boss of Denise Thomas then?
Denise is, yes, and I know her very well. She was great. She went over to homicide.
Yeah.
She actually tried to sign in tonight too, so she might be listening. So I'm only going to say good things, but Denise and her brother Harold are wonderful people.
HT,
I consider them
HT. They're like family to me. So I had
and I know Will. I don't know what their situation is, but Will Green was a detective for me in the 7-7 as well. So I don't know where they are now and what's going on in the world, but I have love for the three of them. So
yeah, well, Will. I wouldn't even talk about Will too much.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. This is the tavern, you know. Yeah. So if it needs
you
to
make Denise lose her mind.
It could be unfiltered, you know.
Yeah. So I had a missing person that turned into a homicide, and we ended up digging up the body on Bedford Avenue, next to the firehouse between Myrtle and Flushing, and that was one of those where somebody takes a pinch. Cab driver gets pulled over by patrol for really nothing, and he has a suspended license, and patrol says, well, you're going to get collared. And they bring him into the 7-9, and the guy is scared to death. His street name was Tex. And he's telling them, well, I know somebody that killed somebody, and I know where they buried the body. So the patrol officer says, hold on. And he calls me. And I'm like, who is this? He goes, do you guys got a missing person? I go, we don't do missing persons. This is a cold case. He goes, well, I got a guy here who's saying he knows where a body is buried. I go, why is he telling you this? He goes, because he doesn't want to go through the system. I said, for a suspended license? I said, how long are you going to be there? You're not taking him down? He goes, no. So I drive up to the 7-9. The guy, they have him up in the burglary unit. And I go up there and I start talking to him, and he goes, yeah, the guy is buried at a used car lot where they put stolen cars in. I go, what's his name? He said, Harlem. I go, like Harlem in the city? He goes, yeah. I go, well, what's his last name? He goes, I don't know. His name is Harlem. I go, well, who killed him? And he tells me, he says, the Parenti brothers. I go, why? He said, because they were stealing cars. So together. And then they got into a fight, and he stabbed one of them. So their game was they would get a U-Haul truck, and they would get the U-Haul truck, and they put ramps on it and drive the U-Haul truck down on Flushing Avenue, and they would steal a car and drive the car up onto the U-Haul and close the gate. and they were wait. They were worried. They would watch and see what was that. What was the low jack? They would wait to see if there was a low jack hit, and if the cops didn't come around and sniff around the truck, they would drive the truck to one of Carmine Agnello's junkyards, unload the car, and then it would get stripped. But they were also bringing cars to that little junkyard on Bedford Avenue. So Tex owned a gas station on Myrtle and Troop, I think it was, across from the laundromat. Not the laundromat, that soap factory, Tommy. It was on Myrtle.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly that. The only thing I remember over on that side was Pfizer was the big building over there.
No, it wasn't Pfizer, but this was Myrtle and Troop. And the gas station was there. And he said, I let them bring their cars over there to strip sometimes, but the two brothers were mad at Harlem and they were talking to him, and then all of a sudden they shot him. I goes, and then what? They said he put him in the trunk of a car and drove him over to a lot, and they got a guy called Bones to dig a hole, and they put him in there. So I go, well, what's Bones' real name? He goes, I don't know, but he lives in Marcy houses. I go, okay, well, where can I find him at? He said he's homeless. You'll find him over there in Marcy. So I went over to Marcy, myself and Ronnie Balzan, another detective. And we went around, and we were asking people, and they go, oh, Bones lives in this building. I forget the building number, off of Marcy. And we went up in there, and we knocked on a couple of doors, and we asked them. And they said, no, he lives up on whatever floor it was. You'll know the door because it has some kind of markings on it. So we went and knocked on the door. And this guy, Bones, answered. I said, you Bones? He goes, yes, I didn't do anything. I said, we're the police. I go, we need you to come and go with us. And he goes, for what? I said, about that body you buried in the lot. He goes, well, I didn't kill him. I go, just come and show me. He comes down, and he really is homeless, and he had an apartment, but he's not the guy you want to put in the back of your R&P. Well, we brought him downstairs. We put him in the R&P, and I said, show me where you buried it. And he directed us to where it was. I go, well, do you know what Harlem's real name is? He goes, no, but he was missing for a while. Anyway, we bring him back to Gold Street, and we're trying to explain. John Dove was my boss. We're trying to explain to him, what had happened. And he goes, you're going to bring this guy to the DA's office? I go, well, I called the DA's office, Ken Taub, and he goes, well, you're going to have more than that for me to give you a warrant for that lot. And, I go up there, and, I bring him with me, and he's sitting there and he's talking and he's answering the questions. He goes, oh, he had on a leather jacket. He goes, I helped dig the hole. I dumped the body in the hole and covered it up, and they put a car over top of the body. And he goes, I would come there and watch the lot for them, and they would walk over to where we buried the body and piss on him and be like, F him, piss on the spot. I was like, okay. And they, we brought him back to the office, and, I said, I told Doe, I said, we're going to need canine. And I spoke to a canine officer, and he goes, it was in 1999, January. He said, the dog's not going to be able to work in that kind of weather. And Dove said, absolutely not. The dogs can't work in that weather.
Because Dove has canine experience.
Yes, he does. Yes, and I asked him. So I reached out to the FBI, an agent named Dave Schaefer, who had his own squad. And we were friends because he helped me with a homicide on Staten Island. And I said, Dave, I explained to him what was going on, and he goes, come with me. And we went to Moonachie, New Jersey. That's where their lab is, their crime scene. And I met a bunch of people from their crime scene there, and they said, we have a dog. It was a little lap dog type dog, like a Yorkie poodle or something. And the agent whose dog it was, he says, well, bring us to where it is. And it was the coldest day in January. And that's why I asked you if you knew Denise. So there were helicopters flying overhead. Somebody leaked it that we were looking to dig up a body, and ESU had to come and jackhammer the ground, and the dog got a hit on the body. The agent said, no, there is a body buried here. The dog is getting a hit. And Dove was still insisting that it can't possibly be. It's too cold out here. And she says she was insistent. ESU jackhammered it, and they hammered steel rods into the ground so that we can get the smell to come up through it. And we started digging. And sure enough, we saw a jacket. So crime scene, we notify crime scene, they show up. But somebody from the 7-9 comes down there and they go, what are you doing? I said, we're digging up. And they're like, you can't be digging up a body here without telling us. I said, talk to the lieutenant. He's over there. Well, this is my, like, I'll give an F who's precinct you, but I don't answer you. You want to talk to the lieutenant? He's right over there. And at that point, Ali is calling. And
he's calling. He's calling the sergeant, my sergeant. And it was DeFlaminus. And he's calling Bobby DeFlaminus, yeah. Was a 7-9 guy, by the way.
Yes. And he's like, Wendell, did you notify the 7-9? I go, no. The lieutenant's supposed to do that. I didn't notify anybody. Well, what about the chief of D's? I was like, no, that's the lieutenant's job. I'm not going to notify. He said, well, there's helicopters flying over here. Ali was pissed. And, and we found the body and we dug it up, pulled him out of the hole. And Ronnie Balzan and I ended up finding, we had to go through a lot of 61s for missings and found out his last name was Bessie, and he was missing from the project over there off of Flushing Avenue. Found his wife and made a notification. She thought that he had took off with his girlfriend, for, a couple of years. Like, no, he's dead. We found him. He had a job and all that. It was, we got the brothers back. We brought them over to the 8-4. I think Seamus McHugh was still the squad boss in the 8-4. And we let them know what was going on. And Ronnie took one over there, and I kept one over at Gold Street. And we were able to get confessions from both of them. All they were concerned about, well, I'll tell you, I don't want my brother to go to jail. I was like, well, you're both going to go to jail if you don't talk. And the DA's office sent over, their video unit to, video them as they were confessing and stuff. You know who Anthony Rico is, right?
The lawyer.
The lawyer.
Yes, I know him. He defended Peter Rolock in the sex money murder case. That's where I met him.
See, this all comes together all the time,
Yes.
Pete.
Yeah, because during the trial, he said to me, he goes, hey, Wendell, did you get any confessions lately? That was a dig at me because one of the brothers had fled from the FBI and he ran up into an attic because we did a joint apprehension, and he hit his head on some roofing nails and he was all cut up. So when he came downstairs, he was bleeding and stuff, and they had an ambulance there and they brought him back to Gold Street, and I offered him towels and called a bus to kind of look at him and patch him up. And he swore up and down that I took a stick with nails in it and peppered his head with it to get him to confess, which was an absolute lie. Yeah. And then the worst part about it was one of the detectives that was there when he was questioned about it on the stand said he didn't remember. He goes, he didn't remember the guy bleeding, didn't know how he got those punctures in his head. And I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me. How could you not remember that? He goes, I don't remember it. And I was like, you were there. And, so Anthony Rico seized on that opportunity to say that, that we beat him to get him to confess. It was totally ridiculous. But, but when we dug up the body, the family, I was able to help the family out to get Social Security for them so that they could move. They live on Staten Island now because they were living above a pizzeria on Myrtle Avenue in Fort Greene. But, I was able to help them out, but it took us a while. Ronnie Balzan was really good with doing it because we went to missing persons and they were like, well, do you have something you want to give us? I go, yeah, we found the body. He goes, well, then we're going to close the case. I go, well, he's not missing anymore. He's dead. He was murdered. And he go, oh, well, do you know who murdered him? I go, yeah, we're getting there. Well, do you want to do a DD5 for? I said, no, I'm not doing a DD5 for you. I'm telling you what happened. And this is before we had the DD5 system. I go, you can come out to Gold Street, you can look at the folder, you can look at the file that we did, and you can get whatever you need to get to help you close your case. He goes, well, I wish you could have kept us updated on it. I go, well, we didn't find out who he was until a few days ago, but we found his body. So you can do what you want to do with it. It's funny stuff.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned the dog, the small dog. You may laugh, and I don't know if any of our listeners remember, because I know we have some housing folks on here. Housing got dogs before the merge.
Mm-hmm.
They also started a narcotics unit called the NEU, Narcotics Enforcement Unit. You know what kind of dogs they got as their drug sniffers?
No.
Beagles.
Oh, no kidding.
They had beagles, yeah. In fact, if you ever fly into Puerto Rico, they use beagles to sniff the luggage for people that are smuggling canepas and stuff like that off the island. So for agricultural smuggling. So yeah, those small dogs, man, some of them can learn just as much as the bloodhounds, and perhaps not as well as bloodhounds themselves or retrievers. Yeah, man, the dog sense of smell is, it's something across all breeds. But yeah, they had beagles. Housing had beagles. Jacqueline Cooper was the dog handler for PSA 8. She's married to a friend of mine. Who's
the name. Oh, no one ever offered that to us.
Well, I don't know if they were still around by that time, Wendell. This was pre-merge. I would say 1993 they got them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when they merged, I'm sure the NYPD didn't want to have a bunch of beagles running around, so they probably became pets.
What PSA were you assigned to?
I was a cop in PSA 8, a detective in PSA 7, and then sent back to PSA 8 for a little while before the merge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved it.
Look, I was just going to say something. God, keep going, guys. But there's so much. The chat is so good tonight. God, keep going. Finish up. Were you good on PSA, Pete? Were you finishing up?
Yeah, I thought maybe Wendell knew some folks from up there. Great place, man. I loved it.
Other than Cumbo and Chofi, Chofi. I'm trying to think of the name of the other guy.
From PSA 8, Mike Gray was up there. Greg Millwater was a PSA detective.
Greg Millwater. Oh,
that dude, hysterical, funny guy. We had Big John Fenton. The sergeant was Julius B. Jenkins. Myrna Villanueva was the other sergeant. The lieutenant was Vic Montgomery. Yeah, it was a good squad, man. Small squad, good people.
So let me just so for everybody, because there's a lot of love and a lot of fans of Wendell, he's probably done the best job of recruiting viewers of all the guests, 49 viewers, this Mazak. It'll be posted once it finishes from here. You go on to Finance Unfiltered, and then you look for the live, and then Wendell will be provided the link, and he'll share it with his community and his group, and it's in perpetuity. It's here forever.
Perpetuity.
Which I want to make a mention, because one of our proudest moments was the fact that Joey Herbert, retired commanding officer of the 7-9 and the 7-5 squad, went on to become the JTTF and the Homeland Security, retired as deputy chief. He passed away about 2 months, right, Pete? After we did a podcast here. So this was his, memorial type of memoir, if you will, of his career. So, Wendell, we want you to live a long and prosperous life
Thank you.
Like with the rest of our members. But I'm going to say it again. These are the stories that need to be told by the people who need to tell them. So,
it'll be around for a long time for people to watch.
Yeah. So if they're all out there, folks. So let's do this. Last any final stories? That I got some pictures I want to show of your career and your retirement, and some kind of sunsetting into your retirement, and then we'll do
Right.
some house cleaning, and then we'll wrap it up. We're coming up on 2 hours, everybody. So thanks for coming. We could go for 4 hours. We could go for 6 hours. But it's a 2 hour show. And so we try to keep it around there. But yeah, when any other last case you want to do, quick mention, shout outs to some families and victims and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yes. So I think you know Cliff Hollingsworth, Tommy.
Of course.
So Cliff and I, go way back. Cliff's brother had been murdered, and in the 7-9, and
Yep.
they were having a problem. His family was having a problem because they were thinking it's too long. So Cliff came to Cold Case, and he asked me, would I be interested in working on his brother's case? And I told him, of course. I said, but you got to speak to the boss because he's going to have to call over to the 7-9 and square it away. So I think Slag had Cliff's brother's
Kevin
case.
Slag. Yep.
Kevin Slag. And
Yeah.
I went in and spoke to Dove, and Dove was like, "Oh yeah, sure," And I went over there and I got the case folder and I started working on it, and came up with another, with some more information, and and I caught the guy. His name was Cherry. I can't remember his first name, but I went and spoke to, that was my big thing, speaking to the family to let them know no one forgot your case. Your loved one is still being considered, and it took a while, but I caught him out in Long Island, hiding out in one of his family's houses. It was a good day when I could call Cliff and say, "Listen, I got him," and he goes, "Are you for real?" I go, "Yo, call your mother, man, and let her know." And he did, and they it was there's nothing. I called Slag and let him know, "Listen, I got him. I'm going to be bringing him in. Can you get in the office? Because I haven't questioned him. I haven't said a word. That's up for you guys because you started this case." I believe he did get a statement from him, but the kid ended up taking a plea. I can't remember the DA's name. Oh man, female DA.
What year was this about, Wendell?
It had to be 80. I was a second grader then. It had to be 87.
No, it's too early.
No. It had to be 97.
Yeah, okay.
It had to be 97.
All right, yeah. Well, I wasn't the boss there then, so I came 2 years later, so I don't remember this. But anyway, it's great to hear Cliff Hollingsworth's name. Great guy, and that's a great story. So
yeah. Rodney Hodges, you know him. He was in the robbery
Yep.
squad. His
Yep.
brother had been murdered too, and he had
Oh.
mentioned it to me. And I caught his brother's murder in the Virgin Islands. Put a lot of work into it. And, the Brooklyn DA's office, Ken Taub was like, "Oh, you're going to bring these people in here. What about the witnesses? Oh, John Basunda, what about the witnesses?" I go, "Well, one of the main things I'm going to do is I'm going to locate all the witnesses. I want to hear about a Singer issue. And I will make sure that they are all on board, before I grab the guy. And it's up to you guys. You got investigators in your office. You can send them out. I'm going to get current, even if they live out of state, I'm going to get current information. Your guys can go and pick them up and bring them in, because, I got along with Taub. John Basunda used to just talk to me. I was like, "John, I mean, come on, the guy's dead. I got witnesses. Every witness is not an angel. It's just the way it is, Well, your witness is just as bad as your bad guy." I was like, "Okay, that means we're not going to talk to them and see what they have." And this is all before Ring cameras and, surveillance cameras and, all that stuff. It's crazy.
So we had Anna-Siga Nicolazzi on as a prosecutor.
Very good. Yes.
Yep. And we talked about the Basunda conversations as well. Pretty funny. Really, really interesting. And you know what? They had a job to do. They needed to protect their cases and make sure they brought the cases. And it was for me, it was always a friendly fight. but it was a fight. And to your point that you're just saying, John, that all these witnesses are not going to be angels. That's not who you're getting at 4:00 in the morning at Franklin and Fulton. It's just what it is. So what do we got to do? Anyway, we got to do it. So let's do some career stuff, Wendell, if it's okay. So you got some accolades, SID 2021, all the awards, certificate of appreciation from the ATF, Pete.
From ATF, yeah.
ATF recognizing Wendell.
So that was Sprinkles. So we did a case in Fort Greene where they were selling guns and drugs out of a restaurant on Fulton Street. And I had a bunch of CIs. And, if you treat them right, they'll give you all kinds of information. And they're like, I helped them out. I said, well, yeah, you've always been good to me. My brother got murdered and you helped. I go, yeah. So, I did my job. It has nothing to do. I know what you guys do. I know what you're out here doing. It was in the 8-8. Richie Erickson used to call me, and Tommy, I can't remember.
Tommy Donahue.
And they'd be like, oh, can you get your cousin to come over here? I'm like, what cousin? He goes, I know you're going to say he's your CI. I go, those guys run around telling you guys they're my cousin, my family. They're not. They are what they are. They're my CIs. But if you need them, so I'll give you a funny story. Some detective told the DA, Melissa Carvajal, like, those ain't his cousins. He tells everybody that. I was like, they're not my cousins, but to get them in the door, to get them from being, harassed, they can tell people, hey, they're my cousins. I don't care. Yes, you're my cousin. And, one of them, because he was cooperating, he helped me with that ATF case. They murdered him, killed him in front of his daughter, one of the Bloods. And Herb Martin helped me catch the guy that murdered him. Did you know Herb, Tommy?
No.
Yeah, Herb. He works in the U.S. Attorney's office now. He's a good guy. He was in Brooklyn North homicide. He was there with Cornicello, I believe. But I could go there, and I did it the right way. I didn't just walk in there and take anybody's case. Detectives will call. And be like, yo, do you have time to work on this? I go, I do. But you gotta, if I call you, you gotta be willing to come out with me to do stuff. I can't remember this guy's name from the 7-5. He was looking for one of the guys from Cypress Houses that did a murder there. And he asked, do you have time to do this? I go, I do. He goes, but I don't think he's around. I go, don't worry about it. He goes, my witnesses think he's in Texas. I go, okay. Well, is your boss going to let you go? I think Herbert was his boss in the 7-5. I called him. I go, I found him. He's in San Antonio. He goes, are you going? I go, can you go? You got to come with me because he's there with one of your witnesses. And he squared it away with his boss. And, with Chief of D's. And we both went to San Antonio and we caught him. We caught him and we brought him back. I can't remember his name, but he was a real mutt in Cyprus. He was part of the A-team. He was. I can't remember his name.
So you eventually move on, retire from cold case, but stay on the job, and you do the police commissioner's detail. Yeah. So how many years did you do with the PC's detail?
From 15 to 21.
Okay.
From 2015 to 21. So the funny thing about that, O'Neill was my boss in cold case. He was a chief there. He was, and I knew him from transit, from the range and when he had the video unit.
Yep.
And he would ask me when he was chief of department, he goes, aren't you tired? Oh, excuse me, aren't you tired of doing this? I go, no. He goes, why don't you come up to the chief of department with me? I go, to do what? He goes, to work with me. I go, do I have to put a uniform on? He goes, I wear a uniform. And I told him no. He goes, well, I don't have to ask you. I am the chief of department. He called me at home. And we were laughing. He goes, so when you come in, be prepared that you're going to come up there and work with me. I call him JPO. I go, Jimmy, I really don't want to go up there to do that. I don't want to drive you around. I'm happy where I am. So I didn't go. I stayed in Cold Case because I was at the time I was working on another serial murder case in Coney Island in Seagate, and he actually let me collar the guy while I was in the PC's detail. So when I got up there, Seamus was up there too. When I got up there, he called me and said, "Listen, I'm the PC now, and I'm not giving you a choice. You're coming to the detail." I was like, "For what?" He said, "To work with me." I go, "I don't want to." He goes, "Wendell, I just told you I am the PC. I don't have to ask you. I'm telling you where you're going to be working." So Seamus called me and said, "Listen, you're the report up here at such and such a date and such a time, and you're going to have to shave, and we wear black and blue suits. None of that stuff you cold case, kill case guys be wearing." So I was laughing. He says, "You got to shave." I was like, I told him, I said, "Seamus, I got difficleitis." He goes, "You got what?" I go, he said, "What, you going to tell me?" Because that was a housing thing too. "You going to tell me you got doctor's lines?" I go, "I do. I got doctor's lines." He goes, "That's a transit thing." He said, "So what? You only get it on your chin?"
Yeah.
I go, "No." He goes, "So you got a chin strap, and that's the only place you get it?" And I was like, "No," because resident used to say the same thing. So I showed up there. They gave me what I needed, my locker and codes and ID card. And Seamus says, "You got to shave." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're in the PC detail and we're all clean shaven." He says, "Don't give me none of that difficleitis stuff." Or what
Pseudofolliculitis barbae. Yeah, I know it.
He said, "You're going to tell me it's your religion, right?" I said, "No, I'm not going to say that." I said, "But, if I shave everything off, that kind of, demasculates me." He laughed. Right? He said, "Wendell, when you come back here, you better be clean shaven." He goes, when you go to the chief of detective's office, you shave, don't you?" I go, "Sometimes." So I remember once I was there, oh man, Russo. It wasn't Russo. Who was the other guy, the sergeant that was like, he was the Marine Corps guy? Not Russo.
In what detail?
He was one of Ali's guys in the chief of detectives. He was a sergeant. What was his name?
No, I don't know.
He he was a rough guy. He was a Marine Corps guy, and he,
Yeah.
Man, what is?
I don't know him. All right. Well, all right. Let's jump to. You got a heroic offers. You got some news articles, and then here's my favorite. This one's great. The Cold Case Ace. Wendell Stradford solves homicides. Cracked a murder case from 1971. This is in the late 2010s. He's now one of the most seasoned, talented veterans. Review cases, blah blah blah. Going through. They mentioned the Virgin Islands case, trinkets, cops. I just got to. Is it St. Thomas, St. Croix, or St. John?
It was St. Thomas.
Yeah, St. Thomas, because that's the busy one, right?
Yes.
He said, "I knew it was going to happen someday." So some great press for you, well deserved. Lee County, Florida. I think that's just south of Tampa. That's on the west side, Pete.
Yes, there was a little girl. A little girl was murdered, and they knew where the perp had come to New York, but they had no way of finding him. So they sent me the file, and I started looking into it for them. And once I located them, I called down there, and their detectives came up. And, I took them around to New York. They had a warrant. I went to the DA's office to get the warrant amended. One from here. Found them at a methadone clinic in Harlem off of Park Avenue in the 2-8. and he was coming out of the meth clinic when we grabbed him. I think he raped and murdered the little girl, but they were so happy that it was a cold case.
It's crazy. All right. What else do we got? Do we have any more? Okay, that was it. That's our last thing. So, Wendell,
Yes.
a little over 2 hours and 10 minutes. Really appreciate it. I know we could keep going. What a great career. I know you're proud. I know the chat has been explosive with the love and the admiration. As I said at the beginning, as it relates to transit and NYPD and housing, I'm grateful for being a transit cop. I'm grateful for NYPD transit. So I think you embody the transit police officer.
Well,
You did it on patrol. You did the specialized units. You then went over to the NYPD as a cold case detective. I think it was the greatest job in the world. I have reasons why I left. It's not for this podcast, but it's the greatest job in the world that I ever had.
right.
Although I think I had the most fun in decoys, but I loved every minute of transit as well. Pete, I'm going to let you have some final comments, and then we'll circle back. And I got some housekeeping for the podcast.
Yeah, well, like I said before, I mean, I never got a chance to cross paths with you that I'm aware of, Wendell, when I was on the job or
Mhm.
with ATF, because I mostly was a Bronx guy, and I know you did cases in the Bronx later, but your reputation definitely precedes you. And I'll tell you, man, I say this a lot. You know, the only thing we take to the graves with us is our reputation. And part of that's based on how you
Correct.
treat people. You know, that's how you treat your peers, how you treat even the bad guys. You know, you got to treat them with respect too, the little that they deserve.
Yeah.
So, man, you've done a great job. Your reputation is impeccable.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
man, I'm just honored to sit here and listen to your stories. I've heard a lot about you from Tommy and from other people, but God bless you, man. You did the job, and that
Thank
is
you.
something to be damn proud of. And I know your family, who's been in the chat here, are really proud of you, and they deserve to be as well. So God bless you and your family.
No, thank you. I mean, I a lot of guys. I love the job. If they didn't age me out, I wouldn't have left, because there was always something else left to do. You know, I had other, but I had grandchildren that I wanted to be able to spend time with, spend time with my family, and then you just sometimes you get. I never was tired of the job. I liked what I was doing, and there was always another case. There was always something that I wanted to do. I was coaching high school basketball. I needed to spend time, doing that. But there's always something that you can find to do. And my grandchildren were growing, and they were always like, "Grandpa, are you going to come to my game?" Or, "Grandpa, are you going to come to my school or my recital and stuff?" And I didn't like missing things. For my daughter and my son, I did too. In fact, my one granddaughter was born on my birthday. In my walkout, my oldest daughter, was pregnant with her.
Wow.
And everybody wanted to bet, "Oh, I bet you she's born on your birthday," which is September 11th. And she was.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she was.
Wow.
So,
Oh, man.
So yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about this. It's all about your police career. But however, Pete and I always try to bring out some of the side stuff that you do, and I know you do a lot of coaching of the basketball with the kids. So at least not so much as we can get into it, but just everyone should know that it's not just a service to the city and the constituents and protecting in the community, but also giving back to the kids and the youth and the basketball. So I know you do a lot of that too. So
yeah.
maybe another time, maybe we get you come back, maybe we'll do an afternoon show,
Right.
So
Yeah, AAU. Yeah. Do you mind if I just say something? I'm a technical consultant for several TV shows. So Jimmy Nusiforo was the one who, got me involved in that. And I've been with Law and Order, the original, for 5 years. And they are like some of the greatest people I've worked with. I would do Blue Bloods every now and then. I did The Sinner for 4 seasons, and City on a Hill on Showtime.
Did you do the first season with Boston? Did you work with Michelle McPhee there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, she's a good friend.
Okay. Yeah, it was good, and we shot in Edenwald projects and up in Mount Vernon just so they get that Boston feel. And
Yep.
it was but Law and Order. I mean, the people I worked with were very good. They looked out for me, and they were very into what I would tell them. They didn't say we're going to take cinematic liberties. They were like, oh, okay, it was good. It was good.
Good. God bless.
Well, they got the right guy to be a consultant on the set. None of those fake uniforms and fake badges and fake words and fake terminology and all that shit.
I just want to know how many times did Tom Selleck eat at Forlini's, because he was constantly in Forlini's. I just wonder how many times. I love that place, man. When it closed
Part
out,
F.
I cried.
Part F.
Yeah, I love that place, man.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Ralphie J 5580 very well said, Tommy, about Wendell and Transit Police. Wendell's the best of the best. Was proud to have worked with Wendell. I was going to say something else, and I'm going to say it now. If there's a definition of the transit police officer in a dictionary or on Wikipedia, the picture they should put up is Wendell Stradford. So,
thank you, Ralphie.
All right. Okay, guys. Any final thoughts? Because I'm going to do some housekeeping on 2 things we have to do for the other shows, and so that's it. So while I'm pulling it up, say final thoughts, final goodbyes, final good nights, final thank you.
No, just much respect, Wendell. You and your family. Look, you sacrifice. You put a lot of time into the job. You put your heart into it. Obviously, the family was there with you, man. When we go to work, our family worries about us. So I mean, thank you for your service, and thank your family for their service. Well.
Thank you. And like you said before, when you said earlier, we take an oath, and we go and look out for strangers, and we put them before our own well-being.
Yep.
And I thank you too for inviting me on. This is great.
It's an honor to have you here.
No, we had a blast, man. I love it. Love it. All right, guys. This is the Finest Unfiltered platform. We have 3 shows total, 2 other shows. So tomorrow at Wednesday, June 3rd at 8:05 a.m., we have John, Eric, and Marlon. I don't know if all 3 are going to be on, maybe 2 to 3, but the show tomorrow, Sarita Komataireddy, I hope I pronounced her name right. She is running for New York State Attorney General. She's going to join the Finest Unfiltered podcast tomorrow morning at 8:05 a.m. on Wednesday. And it's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the Finest Unfiltered. And then I don't have a screenshot for tomorrow because Ron is under the weather, but Rob is hosting with, believe it or not, retired Deputy Chief Mike Marino. And I will tell you what they're talking about in 1 second. I had it and I lost it, of course. Here it is. So tomorrow, Wednesday show, NYPD religious freedom or political manipulation, recent Twitter post, parade security, episode 66 of the Finest Unfiltered's Executive Perspective show. Co-host Mike Marino and Rob Lukash will discuss a recent tweet from a uniformed NYPD executive speaking about Mandami. Mike and Rob will delve into the recent appointment of a retired NYPD officer for the sheriff, and then tune in live for their interactive chat. And you'll see them tomorrow at 5:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on every Wednesday. And that's tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:05, and then every Wednesday, the Executive Perspective. A retired inspector and a retired deputy chief talk about what's going on from their perspective. So you'll see them tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for coming. Great show. We're at an hour and 15 minutes in. We had 283 live viewers, Wendell. So great showing tonight. And then everyone can find this episode on The Finest Unfiltered, 10-4 Tavern, Wendell Stradford. All you have to do is Google it. The Google searches are really good. It'll come up in your first page, and you'll be able to find this episode. And then Wendell for all his folks and his network, and the Transit Police Networks on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the transit groups. The link will be in there from us probably sometime tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow midday. But it's here in perpetuity, and you can watch it forever. And Wendell, thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. I love you. Transit police all the way. Transit through and through. Black patch. However, policing, not only here in New York City, but across the country, they got a tough job. We all have kids. A lot of us have kids on the job. I have a kid in D.C. Trying to do it right, taking care of the community. Single number one most important thing, taking care of the community.
Yep.
So.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, guys.
We want. Thank you very much, Tommy. Thank you, Pete.
God bless.
All right, you can stay on 5 more minutes in the green room for everybody else. But with that, listen to a little blues music. All right, we got a great blues outro. So here we go. Good night, everybody. Stay safe. God bless.
All right. Thank you. Good night.